Hey guys, Victor here again, and today I'm coming at you with another deck profile for the September 2011 format. Today's focus will be Plant Zombies, or Zombie Plants however you prefer to pronounce it, which is a pretty cool deck, but in essence it's basically just a Tengu Plant deck with a small zombie engine splashed in. So with that in mind, let's jump straight into the deck profile. To kick off the monster lineup, we will have one Zombie Master, pretty much a staple of any single zombie deck ever since its release. It's a pretty good card. You discard one, then you special summon a level 4 or lower zombie from your graveyard or your opponent's graveyard in case you're playing like a mirror match or a Lightsworn deck. You really don't need more than one for this specific deck as you have a lot of normal summons already. The one is more than enough to accomplish what you're trying to do. And then for the other one of zombie monsters, we play one Mezuki because it's at 1, but you pretty much need it to bring back any potential zombies. Then you have the one Plaguespreader, and lastly the one Spirit Reaper. This is pretty standard for the most part. They're just really good cards and help you extend or defend or whatever it is you need to do. And then for our final zombie, we will be playing two Goblin Zombies. I personally don't enjoy playing Pyramid Turtle in this format. I'd rather just play the two Goblin Zombies because of the fact that there are a lot of cards in this format that pretty much invalidate the effects of monsters needing to be destroyed by battle, especially in the form of Master Hyperion, who just summons itself and then destroys it automatically. At least with Goblin Zombie, if it gets destroyed by a Hyperion, it still floats into a Zombie Master, or a Plague, or a Mezuki, or whatever else you may need. But if you want, you could easily play one Pyramid Turtle. It's not that big of a deal. I just don't really think it's needed for this format as it's just way too slow for my liking. And then when it comes to the plants, we only play 4 cards for this engine. So we play the one of Bulb, the one of Spore, the one of Dandy, and the one of Debris Dragon, which is basically an honorary plant at this point in the game. We do not play Lone Fire because, like, as I stated with Zombie Master, there's already a lot of normal summons in this deck. And even if there weren't, for this particular deck, I really don't think Lone Fire Special Summon Dandy from deck is enough. Or even like one of your other tuners. It's pretty slow, and there's like a bunch of other cards that you'd much rather play in its place. But with that, that's pretty much the zombie and plant lineup. It's pretty small, but it gets the job done for what it needs to do, and now we can focus on the rest of the monsters. Now, the second portion of monsters for this deck are the ones that help ensure that you can actually compete against the likes of Tengu Plant and Agents, thanks to how speedy and efficient those decks are compared to most decks. So with that, we're going to start off with the Triple Tour Guide and the one Sangan, pretty much a staple in this type of deck. As I said, it's essentially Tengu Plant with a small zombie engine, so you want to be able to play this because Tour Guide is able to make rank 3s in order to get back banished monsters if you make Leviers, such as your Plaguespreaders or your Mezukis. And then it's also able to fill in that void of needing a dark monster in the grave for any potential chaos monsters you might play. And even if you don't want to do that, just being able to turbo the Sangan out of the deck is invaluable for this type of deck because it allows you to search for your hand traps such as Effect Veiler, Maxx, or you can also search for any plant monster that you might need such as Dandylion, Global, Spore, or Debris, as well as the zombie monsters in the form of Goblin Zombie or Plaguespreader. It pretty much gets you whatever you may need for whatever situation you may face. So it's really, really important in this type of deck to have this. And then you also have the 3 Tengu. Reborn Tengu is an incredible card. It pretty much just says if it leaves the field, special summon another Tengu, which in this type of format is incredibly strong, as field presence that the Reborn Tengu offers you is pretty much invaluable, as it helps you float to buy time for next turns, or if you don't even need to do that, just being able to be incredibly aggressive in your plays, such as one of my favorite plays to do is sometimes just summon Scrap Dragon, pop the Tengu in their card, and then bring out another Tengu. And just the synchro plays that this card enables are pretty much limitless. It's a fantastic card that is incredibly important to this deck. And then we also play 2 Maxx because it's Maxx, 2 Effect Veiler. This is pretty much our main light monster to help feed our chaos plays. There's not much else to say. It's really good. And then it also has like the added ability. So since it's a tuner, say for example you have a set Goblin Zombie, you just normal summon this synchro and then you search with the Goblin Zombie. And then you also have a light and dark engrave in case you want to summon a chaos monster, and it just helps you so much with your plays. And then after that we have the one Caius the Shadow Monarch. I think it's pretty good. I wouldn't play more than one because I feel like it tends to brick if you play multiples. 1 is probably the perfect number. And then you play the one Gorz because it's Gorz. Pretty much helps ensure that you're going to live. It's a fantastic card. And then lastly, you play the one BLS. What can I say? This is essentially the boss monster of the deck when you don't care about the extra deck. If you drop this, you're pretty much guaranteed to win the game. And now you may be wondering, why would I play this if I only play 2 lights in the Effect Veiler? Well, the fact of the matter is, getting the Effect Veiler in the graveyard is incredibly easy for this type of deck to do. But even if you can't get the Veiler into the grave, there are a ton of extra deck monsters that are lights in our deck to help feed for the BLS. So it's honestly not that hard of a thing to accomplish. So because of that, we play the 1 BLS. And with that, we can finish up the monster lineup and finally head on over to the spells. Now for the spells, we are only playing one-ofs, but every single card is incredibly important in helping ensure that you can actually play the game. So we're going to have the 1 Heavy Storm because it's Heavy Storm, and the 1 Mystical Space Typhoon. I feel you don't really need more than this to play the current game. Of course, unless you play against like TGs, for example. But for those specific decks, you will be siding mainly back row hate. So you're pretty much just banking on games 2 and 3 against those decks. You know, the main focus of this deck is to be able to compete against Agents and Tengu Plant. And then you also play the 1 Dark Hole, the 1 Book of Moon to get over potential threats. And then for extenders, you play the 1 Monster Reborn, and then the 1 Book of Life. The zombie engine's pretty small, so you honestly don't need more than one of this. But the DD Crow effect the Book of Life has is actually very useful in helping you outgrind your opponent, as it can banish key pieces from their graveyard that they may be banking on using later. And then for the rest of the one-ofs, we play 1 Foolish Burial because it's foolish, and we play a deck that revolves around the graveyard. 1 for 1, as we play plants and a lot of level 1s to summon from the deck. This could also be a great way to summon out Effect Veiler from the deck if you don't want to special summon out a plant like Bulb or Spore or anything. And then who else can forget the famous 1 for 1 Dandy play? It's just an incredibly powerful card in this deck. And then we play 1 Mind Control. We have a lot of tuners, and our extra deck is pretty varied, so this card will pretty much always be live. And even if you don't want to synchro, you could always Xyz with whatever you take, etc. The plays that this card offers you are pretty much endless. It's just an incredibly good card. And then lastly, we play the 1 Pot of Avarice because it's Pot of Avarice, and it's pretty easy to get monsters in the grave, especially for Reborn Tengu. And being able to recycle all your Tengus back into the deck is just pretty much invaluable in a game ender in and of itself. And since we don't really play many traps, I'll just lump them in with the spells. So we're going to play 2 Solemn Warning and the 1 Solemn Judgment. The Solemn Brigade, pretty much staple in every single deck if you could afford it at the time. If you couldn't, or you don't want to, you could easily just substitute the warnings for, say, 2 Bottomless or 2 Compulse, but Warning is pretty much the go-to card for these situations. And then we also play 1 Mirror Force, 1 Torrential, and 1 Trap Dust Shoot. What else can I say? Pretty much just very, very good one-ofs, especially Trap Dust Shoot. If you're able to resolve the Dust Shoot, you've pretty much already won the game at that point, because the knowledge that you get from your opponent's hand is invaluable, and just being able to put any card or any monster card from their hand back into the deck is pretty much game-changing. This card really should not exist in this format, but it does, unfortunately. So if you can take advantage of it, you should. And with that, that's the Spell and Trap lineup. It's a 40-card main deck. I never, ever play more than 40. You want to have your deck be as consistent as possible, so because of that, we only play the 40 cards. And now we can finally move into the extra deck. So the extra deck is basically just as generic as it always is. You play the 1 Formula because it's Formula, 1 Armory Arm. So the thing about this is these are pretty much the main light monsters that you will summon to help ensure that you can bring out BLS, especially Formula, who's very, very easy to get out thanks to Dandylion getting tokens and pretty much all your tuners being level 1. But yeah, these cards are just good generic lights to have. And then you have 1 Ally of Justice Catastor because it's Catastor, along with the 1 Hyper Librarian. This is actually one of the few decks that I feel Hyper Librarian really gets to shine, just because like this deck, outside of maybe pure Tengu and any potential junk doppel decks, is able to abuse this card a lot, as it's able to synchro summon incredibly easy compared to most other decks, especially thanks to things like Mezuki and Plague being able to combine themselves with Reborn Tengu in order to help you actually, you know, effortlessly synchro summon. And then we also play the 1 Orient Dragon because it's Orient Dragon, along with the 1 Brio. This is the only level 6 zombie synchro that we play, which is Revive King Hades. He gets a lot of utility in this type of deck, or even in this type of format, because there are a lot of cards that float when they're destroyed, or just leave the field. So this is able to answer mainly opposing Reborn Tengus, as being able to shut off an opponent's Reborn Tengu from activating is incredibly valuable in helping ensure that you can win the game. And then you also have the 1 Black Rose, staple, 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon, also staple, and it's another light monster in case you may need to get into the graveyard for BLS. And then for level 8s, we only play 1 Stardust Dragon and 1 Scrap Dragon. Like I said, the Scrap Dragon has a lot of utility with Tengu, or just any card in this, like a lot of the cards in this deck, because a lot of the cards actually float. So if you pop like a Goblin Zombie, you get a Surge. If you destroy a plant, they typically get to come back. Just a really, really good card for this extra deck to abuse. And then our final synchro will be Trishula, who's Trishula. Much like BLS, if this card comes down, you've pretty much already guaranteed the game for the most part. It's pretty rare for you to lose once Trish drops. And then for our Xyz, we play the 1 Leviathan Dragon, probably the weakest Xyz in the deck. And you could easily drop this for something else if you really wanted to, but because we play Tour Guide, we got to play the 1 Leviathan Dragon. And then we played the 1 Leviair, the Sea Dragon. Incredibly important in this type of deck, since a lot of our cards do banish, especially Plaguespreader, who banishes itself after it uses itself for a synchro material when it comes back from the grave. So this allows you to reuse those cards and just continue your plays and continue to synchro climb or summon more boss monsters, whatever you may need. This card is really, really good. And then lastly, we play 1 Steel Swarm Roach. Since there's no Thunder King in the main deck, we play this. It's really useful against other synchro decks. But if you don't want to play Steel Swarm Roach, it's okay. You could just play like number 39 Utopia instead. I prefer this one to be able to stop my opponent's boss monsters. And so with that, we have the deck. If you guys enjoyed it, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. So see ya!